Good morning everyone. Today we will discuss a question in your General Studies 2 previous year question from the theme Representation of People's Act 1951. So the syllabus point in your UPSC previous year papers is salient features of the Representation of People's Act. Friends, this topic is one of the most current affairs based topic that you can get in your UPSC previous year questions or UPSC CSE examination. If you see, time and again, the UPSC tries to cover this topic in your examination to see what is your awareness of the Representation of People's Act and the changing contours of election that we are seeing in this country. Hence, students must be aware of what is the bare Act, what are the provisions of the Act, and what are the current affairs that are happening in this topic. Today, we will see a question from Civil Service Examination Means 2025. A 10 marks question, which is to be written in 150 words, has appeared in your Civil Service Means 2025 from the topic Representation of People's Act 1951. Today, we will see what are the keywords in the question. From the keywords, we will try to decipher the demand of the question. The demand of the question is the heart of the examination. We will understand the demand and then generate points in the question, which will help students to get maximum amount of marks. Friends, today you will see a handwritten answer for the question, which meets the demand of the question in terms of the word limit also. However, if student wants to look at a more elaborate answer with more value addition point and breadth, they can find in R.C.Reddy IAS Study Circle previous year question book for General Studies 2. Not just this question, but we have many questions starting from 2013 till now. All the previous year questions from General Studies 2 and other subjects are included in your previous year question book. Please look at the description for this book and use it for your examination. With that, let us start identifying what are the keywords in the question. The keywords in the question are: discuss the corrupt practices. As we time and again see, discussion is one of the highly repetitive keywords in the questions in UPSC. When you see the word discuss, please replace it with the word detailed view. You need to give a near 360-degree detailed view about the different corrupt practices. The corrupt practices for the purpose of the Representation of People's Act. So, he is saying, tell me about the different corrupt practices, right? The different corrupt practices in a traditional and non-traditional sense as part of the Representation of People's Act. That forms the first part of your question. So it is like more or less you are giving him a details of what are the different corrupt practices under Representation of People's Act that we see till now. Next point is analyze. Analyze whether the increase in the assets of the legislators. Analyze. So please, the words analyze and examine, these are words which give an analytical dimension to the question. That means, please try to bring in examples. Please try to bring in examples in the question is what is the demand of the question. Analyze whether the increase in the assets of the legislators and or their associates disproportionate to the known source of income would constitute undue influence and consequently corrupt practice. So these are the keywords. In the keywords, the first part is very clear. You tell him, examiner, what are all the different corrupt practices that you can find under the Representation of People's Act 1951? So your answer is secured. The second part is with examples. The examples can be in terms of case laws, in terms of statistics. Tell him whether the increase in assets of the legislators or their associates disproportionate to the known sense of income. The word disproportionate means rather than what is given in your affidavit to the election commission, if your assets are way too higher than your known sources of income, and whether you have disclosed or not disclosed it, will it actually amount to undue influence and hence a corrupt practice? So these are the different keywords that we will discuss in the question, and tactfully you should write from point to point so that the answer does not get clumsy. When there are many keywords, students tend to vomit out more content into the paper rather than focusing on the structure. Once you structure the answer, it is more coherent. So my suggestion to the students is, first start with corrupt practices, then discuss about undue influence, then discuss about, in the current case given in the question, about the disproportionate assets. If examples are provided, that will be a valuation in the question. So the framework is set right. First discuss about corrupt practices, undue influence, and then disproportionate assets case. Okay. Let us start. So as agreed, the first one. Let us hit straight away the target. Section 123 of Representation of People's Act discusses with the corrupt practices. So this is what we targeted, right? Section 123 of the Representation of People's Act 1951 discusses the corrupt practices which focus on specific legalities. So explicitly certain legalities are defined. What are those specific legalities? One is bribery under section 123(1). Right? Second is appeals to religion or caste under section 123(3). And third is undue influence under section 123. So for the first part of the question, we said, dear examiner, there are three major corrupt practices. One of them is bribery, one of them is appeals to religion, and third is undue influence. Right? Now I will peel the next layer. The next layer is, what is this concept of undue influence? Under section 120, under section 123(2), this undue influence is defined as any direct or indirect interference with the free exercise of electoral rights. So the definition under section 123(2) for undue influence is whether in a direct or indirect manner, if you are hindering the exercise or free exercise of electoral rights, then it is undue influence. Generally, in a traditional sense, we see it as physical coercion or any threats of excommunication. Right? You might have seen in many newspapers or many movies or many audio visuals that people complain about physical threats. We call it as money and muscle power. Right? Once money and muscle power are used on common voters, then you can see that free exercise of electoral rights might not be possible, and it forms an undue influence under section 123 of the Representation of People's Act. Right? But however, over the years, the judiciary has extended the scope of undue influence under section 123(2) from not just physical threats and coercion to what is known as informational transparency. So the better right to know of the electors is also forms what is a part of the undue influence. So here we will analyze the new definition of undue influence, that is the informational transparency, through what is known as the Lok Prahari case of 2018 or the Association for Democratic Rights of 2020. So what did we say? The keyword asked for analyze. When we are saying analyze, so bring in examples in which the new definition has come. So we have picked up two famous cases. One is the Lok Prahari versus the Union of India case 2018, or the Association of Democratic Rights case 2002. In both the cases, it was said by the Supreme Court that the voters have a right to know. They have given it under Article 19(1)(a), which talks about the right of freedom of speech and expression. The Supreme Court has said the fundamental right to know the physical health of candidates will help electors to make an informed choice. Which means, if the electors better know what is the financial situation of the candidate, which provides an informational transparency, the electors can make a more informed decision. They can make a more informed decision based on the financial transparency of the candidate. Friends, why it is very much needed? It is very much needed because the public servant's wealth, if it grows disproportionate to the known source of income, it can lead to some malpractices. The second one, non-disclosure as fraud. It is even said that if a candidate or their associates show a phenomenal increase in disproportionate assets, that is, extreme increase in their assets against their known source of income, and not just they have increased their known source of income, but if they fail to disclose, then it is considered a fraud of the constitution. So read both the points together. In those cases, the Supreme Court says the right to know is fundamental. And in second point it says non-disclosure is actually a fraud of the constitution. Right? So if you see both of them in unison, you will understand what is the electoral impact. It says such non-disclosure is not merely a technical lapse but an undue influence. Right? Such non-disclosure is not merely a technical lapse but an undue influence, because it prevents the voter from assessing the candidate's integrity. Right? Read the both points, the right to know point and the financial integrity point. If you see both of them, thereby it is protecting the purity of the ballot. In this way, you can see how the answer is structured. First, we talked about corrupt practices. In that, we discussed about undue influence. Then came to the aspect of the disproportionate assets of the legislator and their associates. So, finally, we write the conclusion. That while the disproportionate assets are criminal matters under Prevention of Corruption Act, the very interesting conclusion that generally there is a Prevention of Corruption Act that deals with the aspect of disproportionate assets and their disclosure. But however, you must understand that RBI is very important because non-disclosure amounts to corrupt practices. Non-disclosure amounts to corrupt practices under section 123(2), and it can impact the purity of the elections that are present, and a free and fair elections can be impacted. Right? So the nature of the question is start from the corrupt practices, come to undue influence, disproportionate asset, say that though corruption is part of PCA case, Prevention of Corruption Act, but however in RPA it is very important because it will come under the corrupt practices and undue influence. In this way, friends, you start practicing on how to write structured answers by deciphering the question properly. This is a very integral part of one of the programs at R.C.Reddy known as the Strategic Revision for Mains. In Strategic Revision for Mains, faculty from each of the subject try to identify what are the most relevant themes based on the previous year questions and also the current events. They try to identify those themes which can be of maximum benefit for your current civil service mains examination. And physical classes are taken on these topics where the faculty tries to review framework for different topics on how to address the question and give value addition to it. This will help you to gain more marks in the examination. Hence, I request all of you to contact R.C.Reddy IAS Study Circle to learn about the program and get maximum benefit for your examination. Thank you, one and all.